Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. In our first story, the real estate agency wanted to defraud a group of young people, and we'll see how it ends. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. You want to take too much money from my flat deposit? We'll see about that. This happened in London, where I was just 1 year after graduation, trying to save anything from my salary while living in this super expensive city. With my flatmate, we decided to live with one more friend and move to a bigger apartment. We were renting this property for a year and our lease was finishing, so timing was perfect. Like most of the properties in London, this was let by the agency, so the whole process was very professional. Before we moved in full, very detailed inventory check of the house was prepared. After we moved out, same company did one again to allow for any deductions from the deposit. Deposit in UK is usually 6 weeks of rent, about 2,000 British pounds. Quite a substantial amount for poor young professionals like us. 3 weeks after we moved out, we were still waiting to receive our deposit. We already received inventory check done after we moved out, and flat was virtually in the same condition as when we moved in, except for a few bulbs we never bothered to replace. We started to chase the landlord to give us money back when he finally emailed us a list of deductions. This included £120 for cleaning the balcony, £125 for replacement of 5 light bulbs, £50 for blocked toilet, was never blocked, £50 for something else, etc. In total, almost £500. We asked the landlord for receipt for items like bulbs, as prices he quoted were crazy. We also argued that he can't charge for things like dirty balcony, as we left it in the same condition as it was when we moved in, and we had proof. Report done by external company he chose. He was very stubborn, didn't want to discuss it, and just didn't want to give us this money. Luckily for us, UK tenants are very well protected. Every deposit has to be registered in one of 3 deposit protection schemes, and if one disagrees with landlord on such deductions, there's an arbitration procedure where deposit protection schemes decided what's the right deduction amount. Given that landlord didn't want to negotiate, I notified landlord we will dispute it via the scheme. Issue was, I could never find the registration document for the deposit, which should have been provided to us when we moved in. I was afraid I'd lost it. For 2 weeks, I was asking the landlord to provide me the details of the deposit registration until finally I called all 3 deposit schemes. It turned out our landlord actually never registered the deposit. Scared we might lose all the money, I researched the topic, and it turns out not registering the deposit is a very serious violation by landlord, punished with a fine of 3 times the amount of due deposit. Next day, I filed the small claims court case against the landlord for £8,000, 3 times 2,000 penalty, all deposit remaining, court fees, etc. 3 days after, angry landlord called me and started to swear and shout, saying, how do I dare sue him, and that I will pay dearly for this. I remained calm, just told him, well, I guess we'll see about that in court. 2 days later, we received a call from the agency who rented the flat saying the landlord would like to settle, which we did, as we got all the money back and then some for inconvenience. We didn't ask for full penalty amount, though thinking now we probably should have. And our next story. New diversity hire manager wanted my dad gone. Oops. My dad, X, was a first-generation Asian immigrant with a PhD who'd been working as a senior engineer for a Shell refinery for almost 2 decades. Dad didn't socialize much with his other coworkers, partially because he had a 2-hour round-trip commute, and partially because he didn't share many of the same cultural touchstones as them, being an immigrant. Still, he was highly respected by his coworkers because he was damn good at his work. Being the stereotypical Asian math whiz, he even came up with his own, extremely complicated resource allocation algorithm that generated significant efficiency improvements for the refinery. Let's call this the X algorithm. You have to understand, this was a major multi-billion-dollar refinery, so he was now literally saving the refinery millions every year. If he were a more entrepreneurial sort, he probably would have negotiated and gotten either lifetime royalties or promoted into management track, but he was happy with just a rink-a-dink plaque plus his algorithm making his work much easier for him. He was at the company for 19 years. Over the course of those 19 years, most of his managers either retired or were promoted into senior management outside his orbit, but each time they'd tell the new replacement, "Hey, don't F with X, he's a good dude and saves the company a ton of money." Dad didn't play the schmoozing game, so he stayed as a senior engineer and never made it into management track. But he was all right with that. Unfortunately, during the 19th year, there was a 3-month gap between the last manager leaving and the new manager arriving. This time, the message wasn't conveyed. The new manager was, for lack of a better term, a diversity hire. Unlike the previous supervisors my dad had, she was in her early to mid-20s, fresh out of college, with just a bachelor's in management and 0 engineering background. She was now supposed to manage a team of mostly PhDs with decades of experience in the field. To be fair, that probably wasn't easy for her either. She had the typical liberal arts college attitude of always knowing better than you. And how? I say that as a liberal arts major. And there was immediately friction between her and my dad. She probably just wanted to demonstrate her authority, being new, and my dad seemed like an easy target, being the old guy in the department who never hung out with anyone. It all came to a head one day when she very publicly called him out on some calculations she claimed he got wrong and offered rather smugly to teach him the math behind it. Oh, hell no. Asians in particular tend to care a great deal about face and respect, especially for your elders. Here was this 20-something business management bachelor's with no experience trying to publicly embarrass him, an Asian man in his 60s, and say that she was going to teach him math? Yeah, no. My dad quite brusquely demonstrated that his calculations were in fact correct and then started doing something I really wouldn't recommend. He seized every opportunity to publicly call her out and embarrass her when she got her stuff wrong, which was quite often. Things got bad, real bad. The new manager wasn't going to take this lying down, so every week she tried to seize any excuse to write my dad up for purported mistakes or infractions. This went on for a full year. He had gotten an outstanding rating on every annual report since 1995. The new manager tried to give him a not adequate rating on the 2014 one and basically threatened to fire him, 1 year short of his 20-year retirement with pension, unless he wrote a self-critique and came up with a self-improvement plan. This was the absolute last straw. My old man lived through the Cultural Revolution in China, which was all about stupid teenagers and college kids harassing and humiliating their elders and making them write self-confessions and self-criticisms. He wasn't going to put up with this crap. So he said F it and gave HR his 1 month's notice. You want me gone? I'm gone. F you and your pension. The first day, all was quiet. The next day, all hell broke loose. While none of us were there, this is how we imagined things went down. New manager. X has decided to quit instead of improve his performance. Senior management. Oh, okay, wait. So who's going to run the X algorithm? New manager. X algorithm? Senior management. OF, OF, OF. Senior management basically realized that no one besides him even knew how it worked, much less would be able to maintain or operate it. He had created it all from scratch. Once Dad was gone, the algorithm would be gone with it, along with the millions in efficiency savings each year. The head of HR and VP level exec immediately scheduled a conference with him and the new supervisor, and the company caved all the way. Dad no longer had to report to the new manager. His annual report was changed to outstanding, and he now reported directly to the VP. His job also changed. His only responsibility for the next year, until his retirement date, was to spend a few months in training his replacement on the usage and maintenance of the algorithm. Once his replacement was fully trained, he had no other responsibilities. He could just sit at home and collect his paycheck until his retirement date came. I would also like to say that the new employee has been punished for his hellish year, not critically, but still. And our last story. My tale of ProRevenge on a collections agency. Around 2 p.m. today, I received a call from a collection agency. I'd been seeing this number pop up random times every day, so I decided to answer the phone. Collections a-hole, CA from here on, got short with me when I requested detailed information and then hung up on me when I asked for his full name. Cue the, you don't call me wanting money with no explanation and then hang up on me when I start questioning your claims to my money. So I called back, took 4 calls before I got a hold of a supervisor. I finally managed to pry the info out of the supervisor and find out this collection is for a hospital bill I don't even owe. Argument ensues with me telling him I'm refusing to pay $675 for a hospital visit I never even had been to. He keeps threatening me with small claims and yada yada, but I managed to get the company's address, a P.O. box in Buffalo, New York, and the number they were calling from was routed through North Carolina. I looked around and couldn't find an actual company listed under the P.O. box or anything related to the phone number. Nothing. No company name, no physical address for the office they're calling from. I know they aren't all working from a P.O. box, obviously, so I get suspicious and call up my attorney with the info I've found. He informs me he'll have a look and call back. Around 3 p.m., he calls to inform me this collection agency buys outdated or already paid but mid-managed collections, then tries to extort people into paying what they don't owe by threat of legal action. My attorney got all the info on the business and the executives and forwarded it to the FBI, FTC, and SEC for interstate extortion and other financial crimes. While I was on the phone with my attorney, I got a call from CA and his supervisor, so I added my attorney into the call while he muted his phone. They called to inform me that they've absolved my debt, which wasn't a legit debt to begin with, and said I'd never hear from them again. Once they hung up, my attorney said, yeah, they won't be calling you because they're going to be neck-deep in investigations for a long, long time. As it turns out, this guy is just a scam artist, not really an imminent threat. Plus, he left the U.S. in the 90s when he jumped bail on a telemarketing scam he was running where he was tricking the elderly and immigrants into giving him their banking and personal info with the promise of a $10K limit credit card. No one ever got a card, and he was just robbing them blind and selling their identities off to the highest bidder. When I was 16, I actually worked for one of this D-heads call centers here in Florida. I worked there for about 3 weeks before I quit for different reasons. I found out what was really going on after I'd left, but I quit when I walked out back to have a smoke and got a 45 shoved in my face by one of my supervisors because they were doing a huge coke deal out there. Edit. Found out it was the same guy today when my attorney told me his name. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.